Rahubat, welcome to OSM Vision Ask Us Anything, where you can send 3 questions, filming yourself, asking your questions, and then you upload the 3 questions to osmvision.wetransfer.com and we'll get those answered for you. All right, let's get into it. First
Shalom.
question for today.
My name is Veronica, and my quick question is: how do I? You said that Jesus Christ isn't real. He doesn't exist. Am I hearing that correctly? 2, how do I unlearn what I've already learned? I I was cursing myself one time, calling myself like a harlot. I was really hard on myself. And I called myself a harlot because I was dating someone that was also dating someone else. And it was the first time, and I was really hard on myself. And I also prayed and asked God to help me understand what, just help me understand if I was praying to the right God, excuse me, and who I should be praying to. That night, I fell asleep, and I was fell asleep questioning whether Jesus existed or not. And when I fell asleep, it started off a regular dream. Everything was normal, but then it in the middle of the dream, the sky changed from blue to red. Bodies fell from the sky, and my eyes became like binoculars in the dream. And when the bodies fell, the last body that fell was 5 bodies. The last body that fell looked up at me, and they were all in white, like white gowns, white sheets, or whatever. And the last body that looked up at me said, "You can't escape the last days." And at that moment, there was a huge entity that dropped down, and it was like about 10 to 15 feet tall. It's really huge, and it had a red sparkling gown on, and it was like coming at me, and the energy was so strong and great, and I couldn't move. And at that moment, I knew it wasn't a regular scary dream where monsters was coming and you just like you couldn't get fast enough, but you was running. No, this was a different type of paralysis. I've only experienced sleep paralysis as a kid, as I was attacked a lot in my dreams as a kid. And then this particular time, I was literally stuck and I couldn't move. But I could see the person I was waiting for come. They ran, and I guess they saw the thing coming, and then because they turned around and ran right away. And I can see them from the corner of my eye come. And when the thing approached me, I didn't know what to do. So I called on Jesus Christ, and it growled on me, and it said, "Rah, Jesus doesn't exist." And so immediately I believed that was a lie. And I said, "That's a lie. And I'm going to believe on him until the day I die." And the moment that I said that with so much conviction and belief, that's when I felt the spirit of which I believe was God come down on the side of me. And I seen the light. Now, when I was 11 years old, I was able to watch my aunt, who just recently passed away at the time, go into the light. She visited me in a dress that we buried her in. She was floating. I was walking, and she handed me a red rose. And I seen, a light. There was like the sun on the side of me, and then there was another light in front of me that radiated a feeling. And I felt that light again at this time when I was being attacked by the entity. And at that moment, I needed to know. I needed to know what and I came down. And I said, I'm going to believe. I said, I'm going to believe into the day I die. And only at that moment did I see that energy, and I was able to move when it came down on the side of me. Now I was able to move, and I was able to, I was ready to fight back. Now I had, the strength, which I believe I wouldn't have gotten if I didn't call on Jesus Christ. So, and that entity changed from 10 to 15 feet to now a 5-foot grand old lady that didn't have strong features anymore. It was like this old lady, and the dress that it had on, it was like sagging, and it was just it was dragging because it was no longer tall. So my question is, what if Jesus doesn't exist, then who came to save me? Because I know for a fact that I would have woke up as who I am. I would have woke up if I woke up at all, I would have woke up as something else, whatever that thing was, whatever spirit that thing was would have consumed me. And I know that because I called on Jesus, that it. So who, if Jesus doesn't exist, then who came to save me? The dreams that I had when with watching my aunt go into the light. I've watched many people die. I've seen many people die, but never seen anyone go into the light. Who came? I am so confused because how do I unlearn? My next question is how do I unlearn what what I've learned, or what I've been taught. When I pray, there was I was praying, for guidance, and then I was woken up out of my sleep by, my name being called. No one's there. What is that about? I'm praying for some spiritual guidance, so I believe that this is a prayer being answered, but who am I praying to if Jesus doesn't exist? Please help me.
Okay, so there's a lot in there, and have to try and I've got some questions. The first thing I would like to say is, in order for us to address your questions succinctly and directly, if you would just keep your questions very simple and clear to the point, because we have to listen for a long time to try and decipher and pick out the question. We actually, in our Telegram group, we get asked questions every day. So that's one of the ways you can learn how to ask questions, because there is a science or an art to asking questions where you get the best answers and get the information that you're really searching for. But let me try and address the questions. But before I do, I want to say sorry to the entire world for what religion has done to people's minds, because you can hear it. You can hear the confusion. You can hear the stress, because people are trying to make sense out of, years and years of things they've been believing in. And one of the key words you will hear a lot with people under the spell of religion or under a religious mindset is, I believe, I believe, I believe, because you're taught in religion to believe. And believing doesn't necessarily means that it's true. It's a belief. There are many belief systems. You can believe anything, but it doesn't mean that it's true. If you search and go through some of our previous videos, you will find out that we've addressed the fact that the Bible, not just the Bible, but the Abrahamic religions, which are really, the Christianity, the Islam, and the Judaism, and many offshoots that have come out of these predominantly what we refer to as the three frogs. And what you will find is that, the title, for example, of the book, the Bible, is the word Bible means babble or confusion. Yeah. So when you say the Holy Bible, holy means pure. So you're literally saying this is pure confusion. And then you read it and you get confused. And the reason you get confused is because it's translations of translations of translations of translations, to the point where it's so watered down and so incorrect with a lot of information. In fact, the entire Bible's probably got about 10% information that you could use. And even that in itself is plagiarized, because if you do the studies, you realize that the Bible comes out of the Sumerian text, specifically the Enuma Elish, all right? And many other tablets, the Gilgamesh epics, the Atrahasis, the tablets of Atana, the Akkadian tablets, so many tablets, and more are being uncovered pretty much every day and destroyed, so people don't get to get actual facts of the truth of where these stories are coming from. And some of them are coming from ancient Egypt, where they've actually desecrated the stories or brought them into other cultures as a story that's been repeated over and over and over again. It's kind of like, a simple way to explain this is like, if you watch, say, a movie like with a superhero like Superman, and or in any other cartoon that started off as a comic book. So somebody wrote a comic, and then eventually that comic got put into motion, right? As in a cartoon. And then from that cartoon, moving images, it becomes real actors that are selected to act the part of that person. I'm saying all this to relate to the first question about, is Jesus real? Because that was one of the questions that I picked out. So if you were around when the first person who played Superman was around, you would not even remember. So you may remember like Christopher Reeves, for example, and there have been many people that have played the role of Superman, and today it's become, I can't remember if it's Marvel or DC, but it's become a big blockbuster where you have had different people play Superman. And now it looks real, but when you first watch Superman, the way they showed him flying, the black and white ones, for example, I can't remember the actor that played that one, but you know, he would just be like this, and then there'll be moving images in the background to give you the illusion that he's flying. But there's a whole story behind this character called Superman. You know, how he came to Earth from another planet, and how the only thing that hurts him is kryptonite. You know, his parents put him in a craft and sent him down to Earth. He was found by what's their names? The couple that found him, and then they brought him up. And then when he got older, he decided to take this crystal that was inside the craft that was sent down along with him, and he then went to the North Pole or something, and he used the crystal, and this whole building came up with, you know, information from his father and his mother talking about, you know, who he is, etc. But the point I'm making is that the latest version of Superman will have you have the full effects, surround sound, and it looks like a flying man that can dodge bullets, and he can see through things, and you know, he's so fast and he can do all these stuff, and it looks really convincing because you're watching a movie. Saying that to say that there have been many characters playing the Jesus character, because when you look at these religious books, each religion has a superhero or the main character who is like the star. So in the New Testament, Jesus is that the new version is the latest, or the most recent is going to be 2,000 years ago. And if you even just Googled right now, Google images, just put Jesus Christ and look at the images. You can do this in Google, and you will see so many images or pictures of different characters referred to as Jesus Christ. But like the story of Superman, starting off with somebody writing a cartoon, or sorry, writing a comic which became a cartoon, then became a real life movie, it's the same thing with the Jesus character. And so when we say he doesn't exist, we're telling you that the latest versions of it that you're reading are taken from stories that came before, right? And those stories go back to, like I said, to the Sumerians, where you will hear of a person called Tammuz. Or if you went back further, you're going to get to ancient Egypt, which is talking about a person called Har or Harar, or in the Greek it becomes Horus. So when we say he doesn't exist, we're talking about just like the character Superman doesn't exist if it's a fictitious rendition or version of a real or true story, then those characters don't actually exist. But if you go back far enough to the roots or the origin of the story, where that's all coming from, you will find that there are truths. So in ancient Egypt, the person known as Hara existed, okay? And that person, how do we know he exists? Because you have archaeologists, anthropologists, people that dig up evidence, and they tell you they found Osiris. So if you have not read the book called Jesus Found in Egypt by the master teacher, Parnabab Yanun, you need to read that book, because the fact that they found Osiris means that he's no longer a fictitious character, because they did DNA, got the bones, found things to prove that he existed. And once he does, then the other people, like his wife, Isis, these are Greek renditions of their names, right? And they had a son whose name is Ha or Harar, or people say Hiru because of the Chinese whispers, and it becomes Horus, right? So you have to be clear on who you're calling Jesus Christ, because breaking down the words as well means that many people in different cultures have been given this superhero, this title of being Jesus Christ. Jesus meaning from the word Yahshua, which means savior. And Christ or Christos is from the word anointed. Yeah? So that can pertain to anyone who is a savior and anyone who has been anointed. So when we say Jesus doesn't exist in the way you're taught about Jesus in the monotheistic religions, they don't actually exist. They're plagiarized stories from a real person that did in ancient Egypt. And most of the stories that you find in the New Testament particularly are stories that were written initially as plays to relate to what I'm saying, like a comic book, right? You had a family called the family of Josephus Flavius Piso. Research them. He wrote what people are calling the Gospels, and there were plays, and over time people started to believe them. So we're saying that yes, in that case it doesn't exist. Let's move on to the second question, which is relating to, well, if he doesn't exist, who came and who were you witnessing? In Wu-Sabat, we teach you that energy does not die. And if you exist, and you know you exist because you can pinch yourself, if you're here and you confirm to yourself that you exist, then those who you came from would also exist for you to exist. And those are your parents, your mother and your father. And if they exist, they can also confirm that their parents existed. And it can keep going on and on and on. And we say, you are, right, that you're from the line of your ancestors, going back 4 generations in terms of your genetic makeup. So although you may receive help or assistance from your ancestors who have crossed over, that's why I say energy doesn't die, and they exist in other realms. And you have 2 sides, the agreeable, which people interpret as good, and the disagreeable, which people interpret as being bad. It's not necessarily good or bad in that case, because good and bad are subjective depending on the situation and the circumstance and who is looking at it as a bad thing as opposed to who's looking at it as a good thing. So you may call on the names you've been programmed with by way of the religious, belief systems that you've had from childhood. And in addition to that, these biblical stories have been made into movies, all kinds of stuff, and images have been stored in your subconscious about these characters. So when you're in a situation where you need help, you're going to call on what you're familiar with or what you know. Now, your actual ancestors might come to your aid or come to heed to your call and then appear. So when we're talking about beings that can appear to you, we also have another scroll called projection and reflection, because these images that you've stored in your subconscious, you can then replay them and bring them to life. Your eyes are like a camera where you take pictures and you store them. This is where the word imagination comes from, because you have to first of all imagine or think of things before you manifest them into real life. So you will call for help and your ancestors will appear to you, or these entities or other extraterrestrials that will camouflage and pretend to be your Jesus characters or your Moses or whatever character that you want to believe in. You will make them appear to you. So your real ancestors can come to your aid, or some of these imposters, extraterrestrials, that can also take form. And when you're crossing over, because you mentioned one of your relatives that crossed over and you saw that light, we teach in Wu-Sabat that when you're crossing over, you'll have the option to go towards a light. And if you've been given grace, for example, you regretted something, there will be another type of light which is more like colorful, for lack of a better word, that you can go to, that will help you to come back and kind of like change your course of action so that you're going to relive and miss out that mistake that you made. But the first white light is also, it's like a gateway or a way, a wormhole that will bring you back to come back to start, your next cycle of, you have many cycles to repeat until you are able to know and graduate from this realm to move on to the next realm. All right. So this is what's going on. And you're saying, who was it? It's really you and your energy, yourself, that is coming to your aid, or your ancestors that are coming to help you. So it was quite hard to pick out those three questions from the dialogue. And the final thing I would say is that I picked out things that relate to the doctrine of Wu-Sabat. We're not able to interpret your dreams because your dreams are for you. It's something that you have to figure out. If we were to start a religion saying we interpret dreams, the amount of probably money we would make if we were in that line of work would be phenomenal, because we get literally every day people telling us about their dreams. Your dreams are your dreams. Unless I'm in it, then it's my dream too. But if I'm not in it, I cannot interpret your dreams for you. This is how people get conned, by people who will say they can interpret your dreams. Now, there are different types of dreams. There are dreams where you get a profound message that you need to share. These are more like visions. And also, that if it's something that you've experienced, say, with Partner Babianun, that is real, because no one can actually impersonate him. And different people will have miracles with Pana Nababyanun, which are for them. You know, everyone will experience something that will let them know how real he is. And that could be in many different ways and many forms, but it will be something that will confirm it for you, you see. So just trying to say that there are different types of dreams, visions, personal dreams, dreams that are really to be shared with other people if it's like a warning or so on. But we do not interpret your dream. Your dream is for you, and over time you need to write them down, work out what was going on at the time. Later on you may get other bits and pieces of information that will help you put the pieces or the puzzle together so you can decipher what that meant for you in your life. All right, so if you have questions, film yourself using your camera and upload your 3 questions to osmvision.wetransfer.com, and we'll do our best to answer your questions. But more importantly, join our official Telegram group where we have many student teachers that will answer questions for you daily, so you can unconfuse your mind. As you said, you need help. The help is here. The help is Wu-Sabat, and you reading the scrolls will demystify all these stories and all these fictions that you've been given by way of religion. So until next time, Wadu.